So Wicked for Good is the epic finale of the Wicked extravaganza directed by John M. Chu, and once again we follow Elphaba and Glenda, who are once again portrayed by Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, as after the events of Wicked Part 1, Elphaba and Glenda must grapple with their new identities, which are the Wicked Witch of the West and Glenda for Good. And before I continue on with today's video, let's also start our conversation below. What did you all think of Wicked for Good? Did you like the film more than Wicked Part 1? Were you disappointed by the film? How do you feel about the two films as a whole? Let me know below. Alright everybody, let's get into Wicked for Good. If you all remember correctly from last year, I did quite enjoy Wicked Part 1. I didn't absolutely love Wicked Part 1. I didn't think it was the musical masterpiece that pretty much the majority of the world was saying, but it was a film that I did quite enjoy, especially as a person that absolutely adores The Wizard of Oz to absolutely no end. I was quite excited to see how they were going to build up and have this, hopefully this emotionally satisfying finale for Wicked for Good. In terms of performances, everybody once again kills it. Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey, even Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Yeoh to an extent. Jeff Goldblum is once again great as the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Come on, it's Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum is he's a charming presence in really anything that he does. You put him in anything, I'm most likely going to watch because it is Jeff Goldblum. But obviously, and as y'all can imagine, the two main standouts here, once again, just like Wicked Part 1, are Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. Ariana Grande, I may not be the biggest fan of her music per se, but I do think that as an actress, she does have some great talent, not only on the comedic side of things, because in Part 1, she has some great comedic timing, but also on the dramatic sensibilities. Ariana Grande does have some really good moments. In particular, she has one of my favorite moments in this film later on, which I will say, no spoilers by the way, but it's a moment that she shares with Cynthia Erivo, and it was one of my favorite moments of the entire film. The standout here for me was Cynthia Erivo, who once again just absolutely knocks it out of the park here as, you know, Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West. And dare I say, I actually thought she was better here than she was in Wicked Part 1. And considering the events of this film, knowing that these two characters are, you know, struggling with their identities that they've been placed upon them, Glenda being the force of good, or Elphaba as being given the title of the Wicked Witch of the West. But the thing that I thought was more interesting about this film than Part 1 was knowing that essentially how these two characters are trying to do their best to really live upon the roles that they have been given to them. Glenda doesn't like the fact that one of her best friends, or actually, excuse me, her best friend, the person that matters most to her, is being given this title as the villain in this movie, and knowing that she doesn't like that she's been given the title of the villain, she still has to go along with the fact that, hey, you know what, my best friend is being made look like the villain. I still have to go along with it because these people need somebody to look up to as the force for good. And that might be reading into this too much, but at least to me, Elphaba is just rolling with the whole fact that she's not only given this look of the villain, but she's given this look of rebellion against this great wonderful wizard that isn't as wonderful as people are looking at him as this wonderful Wizard of Oz. And once again, just like with the first film, Wicked Part 1, Wicked for Good is once again a beautiful looking film. Whether you're talking about the cinematography, the color palette, the production design, because I mean, even though they do share, you know, the same production design, really the overall look is the same for the first film. I will say, despite how I feel about the overall film, the production design, how this film is shot, I do think it, depending on how you feel about Wicked, I do think in some cases it does deserve to be seen on the big screen, despite how I do feel about the overall package of this particular film. Another particular aspect that I did like in some regards is what John M. Chu does with this movie. As I mentioned in my review of the first film, as a person who has not seen the play, this new take of how the characters, especially Glenda and Elphaba, are from The Wizard of Oz, and seeing this whole new take and this whole new perspective. What John M. Chu here does with part 2 with For Good, I thought was quite interesting in some spots. And there are moments of this movie where this movie locked me in, and there were some really good, if not some great moments. Something in particular that I thought was really cool about the second half of the film is when the events of The Wizard of Oz start happening, because there were some things that happen in this film that are directly paralleled to that film, even if there are some things that are very contradictory. If you have seen The Wizard of Oz, there are some events that go like, wait, I don't remember this thing. And I cannot deny that seeing those characters from Wizard of Oz in this film was pretty cool. It was a really cool thing to see.
Well, that's just fucking great!
But unfortunately, and I know I'm gonna be in the minority for this one, Wicked for Good did not live up to the first film for me. The storytelling of Wicked for Good, more the majority of the time, I was not nearly as locked in as I was for Wicked Part 1. Now, I will say this much, was I still into Wicked for Good? I will say that I was, but in terms of the emotional value, me being as emotionally invested with these characters as I was for Wicked Part 1, the emotional value for me in this film just wasn't there, and there were a couple of particular reasons as to why. One of those reasons being that I feel like that those emotional moments that were in this movie, once they got to those moments, it's like they decided to speedrun like Sonic the Hedgehog through those events. Wicked Part 1 was almost a 3-hour movie, and like I mentioned in my review of that film, I feel like that Wicked Part 1 could have been cut down at least between 20 to 40 minutes to have been a much more streamlined movie, because I completely get that when you're adapting a Broadway musical, which was, by the way, and if I remember correctly, 2 hours 45 and 2 hours and 50 minutes long. They took that play, which was only just below 3 hours long, and they seriously just decided to pad out that runtime to almost 5-hour runtime. And I completely get that when you're adapting a stage play, there are some gaps that say, hey, what happened to this time period? What happened this time stretch? But at least for me, when it came down to filling in those time gaps, a lot of those aspects just did not work for me, where they wanted to fill out certain things that maybe the actors or John M. Chu or the screenwriters wanted to do in terms of showcasing, hey, this is what could have happened between those time periods when we didn't see those characters, whether it's the Wizard of Oz characters or Glenda, Elphaba. But whatever those moments were, those moments only felt like to me in a film that just did not work, and otherwise moments that did work, but they decided to, just not only speed run through them, but they didn't let those elements breathe out like I would have loved to let them breathe. Unfortunately, when you're putting things from stage to play, there are some moments that may not work as good on the big screen, and clearly for me, at least in how I feel about this movie, there were just more than multiple times when I feel like that a moment tried to be this dramatic, emotional moment or a great comedic moment that just didn't quite register for me as much as I would have loved them to. Wicked for Good has these moments that just come out of nowhere. There are moments in this movie into which they're trying to do these big, epic, dramatic moments, but then there comes a moment that just comes out of nowhere, and it completely took me out of the scene. And there are a couple of scenes I can think of right now, two in particular, into which they're really trying to lay down the drama of these sequences, but then something happens that just comes out of nowhere that, to say the least, my eyes were rolling so much in these sequences. There's this particular moment between Elphaba and her sister that it was getting somewhere really, really good, but then something happens and I just went, wait, what just happened? And then, guys, oh my god, there's another moment near the end of the film that could have been this great moment that could have had me really emotional, but then this moment is taken to such a degree that, again, it just had me think, what? Another element in this movie that I found to be quite lacking, especially compared to the first movie, are the musical numbers. Now, I've heard the musical numbers in that part of the play were quite lacking as well, which I would have thought that they would have taken those, parts from the play and they would have, improved them or made them stronger, but there was nothing in this part of the film within this dual chapter of Wicked that stood out. In Wicked Part 1, I remember popular like there's no tomorrow. I absolutely love the musical number. It is a great number that I still listen to from time to time. It's a great number. But as far as Wicked for Good goes, there was no musical number nor a routine that stood out to me whatsoever, even though that the For Good number is supposed to be this very emotionally resonant number. And there was a moment within this thing that I will not deny I thought was very, very well done. I cannot for the life of me can recall a single note, whether it was, a lyric or an instrumental or a certain beat. I can't recall anything. Wicked for Good's ending just didn't work for me. I just found the ending of Wicked for Good to not only to be, for me, not earned, but also the emotional impact I was waiting for, that, that tear moment, that clapping moment for Wicked for Good. The ending for me didn't work. And even worse, disappointing.
And here we go.
So overall, even though there are great performances and there are some really good, if not great moments, unfortunately for me, Wicked for Good was not only disappointing, but also emotionally unsatisfying. All in all, I'm gonna give Wicked for Good a 2.5 out of 5. I really wanted to love this movie considering how much I really dug the first part, but unfortunately for me, Wicked for Good just didn't quite get there for me. I hope you all enjoyed my review of Wicked for Good. If so, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you guys want to see any of my previous 2 videos, please click it right there or right there. And of course, until my next review or video goes live, I will see you all next time.